next. A preeminent doctor who has served as the president of the Royal Australasian College of Physicians and was a member of Alfred Health's Ethics Committee has slammed a policy at Melbourne St Vincent's Hospital to prioritise Indigenous individuals over all other patients. Professor John Wilson told the Herald Sun that the policy breached medical codes of conduct as well as the Declaration of Geneva by prioritising race over clinical need, and that it puts medical practitioners in a situation where they are asked to oppose the moral and ethical principles they have worked towards for decades. Ethically, there is no question that every single person treated by any doctor in this country must be treated equally and fairly. Let's bring in Deputy Executive Director of the Institute of Public Affairs, Daniel Wild. Dan, I called this policy modern-day apartheid in yesterday's Herald Sun. It is clearly discriminatory based on race. It's a racist policy.
Yeah, you wrote a great article on this, Rita, and this was always going to happen. I mean, we've been warning about this and you've been warning about this for years and years, which is if you go down this path of racial difference and of treating people differently based on their race or ethnicity, then inevitably you're going to have a circumstance where governments are prioritising social services such as health based on race rather than need. And, this has happened in Victoria, of course, where they are in the process of finalising a treaty with Indigenous Victorians. So this is just the beginning. This is what Victoria and Australia is going to look like if we go down the path of a treaty. We warned about this when we analysed the New Zealand experience with their Waitangi Tribunal, which is a special body for the Maori population in New Zealand, and we identified that they already have special access to the Maori population based on race rather than need. And we warned at the time of the Voice debate that this would happen in Australia if you have a voice or a treaty that comes into place. That is exactly what is happening, and this is an affront to absolutely everything that Australians believe in and stand for. But guess what? It's only going to get worse. This is going to keep going until we get rid of the treaty and we stop this racial division.
And you're right about not learning any lessons from New Zealand. I wrote about this very issue 3 years ago when this discriminatory practice was happening in an Auckland hospital and doctors were speaking out about race being a factor in how quickly they saw patients. They were also required to see Maori patients earlier than they otherwise would, and we've learned nothing, absolutely nothing. Now let's talk about former US Vice President Kamala Harris. She has stumbled her way through an uncomfortable interview with the ABC's Sarah Ferguson. Have a look.
But wasn't Joe Biden then, to put it on him, wasn't his refusal to recognise his own frailties the reason that you faced a nearly impossible task?
I ran against Donald Trump for president, and Donald Trump ran on a platform that was in large part, I believe, misrepresenting his intentions to the American people.
I want to interrupt you because that is a world-class pivot, but it is not the question that I asked you, which is about Joe Biden's failure to recognise his own frailties and what that did to you. The question is about Joe Biden. Are you still reluctant to criticise the former president?
In what regard, please?
Well, just in terms of that question. So you went on...
What exactly would you like to ask? Be more specific, if you don't mind.
Was it Joe Biden's decision, his failure to recognise his own frailties in that position, that put you in the position that made it almost impossible to win that race?
He was not frail as President of the United States.
But he had frailties. We all saw the debate.
I do believe that Joe Biden had the capacity to be President of the United States.
Oh, dear, Dan. She's not getting any better, is she? And she wants to run again.
Yeah, well, I mean, good on Sarah Ferguson. I thought that was a very good interview. It'd be good if we saw a bit more of that from the ABC, having sort of a fairer approach to how they undertake these interviews. But what a terrible interview by Kamala Harris. I mean, how can she say that Joe Biden didn't have frailties as president? I mean, how can she continue with this fiction when he obviously did? Everybody could see it. The debates made it obvious and apparent that he was struggling. He was struggling with his mental capabilities. And as you say, she wants to run again. This reveals the lack of depth to the Democratic Party. And the fact is, I think that because they all thought Hillary Clinton was going to win in 2016, they haven't invested in their future. So they went from Hillary Clinton, then they had Joe Biden. Now who do they have? They have no one for the future. They have got Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris, which are the only two that seem to be coming up, and both of them are not going to get over the line against Trump or J.D. Vance, who's likely to be the candidate. So the Democrats are struggling with generational change here, and I think it's fascinating to watch.
It is. It's a bit of a train wreck all round. Now, the Office of the Esafety Commissioner has been accused of wasting taxpayer funds following revelations it splashed $41.2 million on temporary staff since its establishment in 2015. In one example of the exorbitant temporary contracts, the Internet watchdog paid nearly $250,000 to hire an executive assistant for just 11 months. And in another example, it paid almost $1 million to hire a senior data business analyst between August 2022 and June 2025. Dan, that's tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer funds to essentially increase censorship and advance leftist ideology.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is great reporting by the Daily Telegraph. I mean, it's good that there's some people in the media that are keeping an eye on this, because you've got to say that Julie Inman Grant's got to go. She needs to be sacked from that position, because not only of all the issues associated with her wanting to censor not only the content that Australians can see, but the entire world. I mean, she's on a global crusade to police the internet, and she's almost got unchecked, untrammeled powers. When you actually look at the legislation that governs or sets up the Office of the Safety Commissioner, there's really very limited democratic oversight. She's spending money like a drunken sailor. She's not getting pulled into line by the relevant minister. And I just think the time has come. I mean, how many more chances do you get? She's got to go. And, like so many of these regulatory officers, they might start with noble intentions to protect children from certain content online, which we all agree with. But very quickly, she grew that role into becoming the world's policewoman to censor content that she doesn't like, that she doesn't agree with. So, she's got to be brought to heel. And I think the only way that can happen is for her to be sacked.
Well, they tried to have an investigation into the scope of her powers, but that was voted down by Labor and the Greens, if I recall correctly, just a couple of weeks ago. Now, let's talk about Liberal Senator Sarah Henderson urging Governor-General Sam Moyston to quit as a patron of LGBTQIA lobby group Equality Australia after it argued in the federal court that biological women should not have the right to female-only spaces. Equality Australia appears now to care very little about the equality of women, Senator Henderson said. I think it is incumbent on the Governor-General to step down as patron of this organisation. Dan, I thought the Governor-General was supposed to be completely above politics. Being a patron of this radical activist group is very political.
Well, I don't think she should step down from the LGBT group. I think she should step down as Governor-General. That would be much better. I'd rather her be activist than the Governor-General. She's a terrible Governor-General. She doesn't believe that Australia is a good country. That's why she supported racial division with the voice to Parliament. You can't have an activist as Governor-General. Of course she should step down. And this appointment was made by Anthony Albanese because he wanted an activist Governor-General who believes in a republic and who would support the political causes of the government of the day, which is exactly what she has done. And the job of the Governor-General, as you've rightly pointed out, is to unite Australians, not to divide us, to represent all Australians, even those with whom she does not agree, which is a majority. A majority of Australians opposed the voice to Parliament. She supported it, so she's out of step with the mainstream. I just don't think it was a good pick for Governor-General. And, of course, everybody's entitled to engage in whatever political activism they think they would like to do, but you don't get to do it. You don't get to have your cake and eat it too. So she's got to step down from one or the other, and I'd prefer her to step down as Governor-General, to be honest.
Now, a TikTok creator with more than 300,000 followers is copping backlash online for posting videos that many find hateful, ungrateful and hypocritical. The young content creator is apparently in her final year of law school, and she claims that she uses her platform to discuss topics like domestic violence, internalised misogyny, racial injustice and police brutality. Here's what she had to say about Australian society, and yes, her microphone is shaped like a penis.
Protect Australian culture, right? You know, the proud culture of having no teeth, yelling unintelligible phrases, screaming profanity at strangers, getting plastered on a Saturday arvo, and smashing a meat pie in the servo car park. Real Australia first behaviour, mate. Yeah, nah, you're doing great. Single-handedly preserving the national identity.
You can understand why that clip has gone viral and caused so much debate. What's your take on that diatribe, Dan?
Well, I don't really have a problem with, having some beers on a Saturday arvo than having a meat pie. I don't really see what's wrong with that at all. I think she's done a good job of describing our culture, sort of a laid-back culture. I don't really see an issue with it. But, I think it gets to this point where, so much of the influx of the migration into Australia has come from international students and temporary residents who don't really feel invested in our country. They don't put any roots down in our country. There's no attempt to sort of integrate with our nation. And I think to characterise it and dismiss it in that way forgets the fact that we are a pioneer as a country when it comes to things like democratic foundations, like the secret ballot, which is a cornerstone of democracy around the world, religious and racial equality. We just talked about the voice to parliament that Australians voted against, racial division in our constitution, and many other issues besides that. So, yeah, I think it's easier to sort of take a look at the facade of Australian culture and criticise it. But when you actually look into Australian values and what Australians actually believe, there's a heck of a lot of good to be said about our country, and clearly this particular individual has no interest in learning about that whatsoever.
No, just deep disdain and bordering on hate for the country, it seems, from that clip. And it's just such a bizarre take, because if Australia is that terrible, then why would your family at some point in their past migrate here? I mean, that to me as a migrant is what I often find so incredible for people who choose to be here, because we are all free to leave, whether we were born here or whether we migrated here. If you don't like it, you can always leave. Now, before you go, we've got a story from the UK that is, again, creating so much debate. It's a shocking case, an Afghan migrant who came to the country illegally and then sought asylum has been charged with 1 count of murder and 2 counts of attempted murder after he allegedly stabbed 49-year-old Wayne Broadhurst to death while the man was walking his dog, and a 45-year-old man and a 14-year-old boy were also left injured. Brendan O'Neill has written an excellent piece for The Spectator on this incident. He notes this barbarism in suburbia will leave so much horror and sorrow in its wake. The peace of a leafy street has been shattered. A man is dead. A family will be ravaged by grief. But there is another emotion too, and one that extends far beyond Oxbridge. Anger. The political class underestimates at its peril the impact that a beastly act like this will have on the consciousness and patience of the electorate. Dan, an increasing number of Brits have had enough, and you can see that. It's very much evident when you look at the latest polls.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, if you want to understand why reform, led by Nigel Farage, is doing so well in the polls, well, this is the reason. Nobody in the political class has a solution to this. And, Labor and the Tories are the cause of the problem. I mean, this mass migration happened under the Tories, where they let in, hundreds and thousands of migrants, and now the illegal component of it has metastasised under Labor, who are not interested. I mean, Keir Starmer has said some good things on immigration. He talked about living in an island of strangers, and he gave that big speech. But as I predicted at the time, he'll say it, but he's not going to do anything about it. And therefore, his credibility, he's already the least popular PM in history. So he already has no credibility. He's only been there for a year after winning in a landslide. I mean, we are in unprecedented territory when it comes to democracy, not just in the UK, but around the Western world. So, look, I just think that this means politically that Nigel Farage is going to keep going up in the polls. Now, whether he can maintain that momentum for 4 years is a big ask. But you're right, Brits are getting angry. They want someone to do something about it. But Reform is the only party that's offering any solution.
Dan Weil, thank you so much for your time tonight.